Hey y'all, welcome to Mimsy's Kitchen, an extension of the garden. Today I'm going to be processing tomatoes and I'm going to show you the easy way to just get a puree. Today's project is just get it done as fast as possible. All I'm going to be doing is coring, quartering, and cooking down the tomatoes in a pot, and then I'll strain them, I'll can the juice, and I'll put the tomato product that's left in my Ninja and just blend it up real fine, put it in the jars, water bath it for 40 minutes, bam, we're done. That's it. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of the steps. Super easy, quick way to process tomatoes when you're in a pinch and in a hurry. I've got one 5-gallon bucket that needs to be done today because we're going to the farm and going to get a lot more. I only got 2 buckets of tomatoes the other day because as soon as we got to the farm, we got that emergency call that they were taking Sarah into surgery to have Adeline within an hour. Well, the farm is over an hour away, so of course I missed it. I called Terry and I told him, I said, I need you to go to the hospital now. He didn't understand because the service was bad, so he didn't hear me when I said now. So he went to town and he did his things and then he went to the hospital, so we both missed it. But I mean, there wasn't anything we could do anyway. And the baby is fine. She's home, and her birth weight was 9 pounds even, 21 inches long, and she had a little bit of an umbilical bleed problem. Her sugar was bottoming out a lot, like down to 11 or below, and that went on for about 24 hours. They finally got that regulated. Sarah did well. She had a little bleeding problem. The hemovac they had in, it took a long time to get that drainage down, so they stayed a few extra days, or a day or two extra. But they're home now and they're doing well. Baby had first checkup yesterday, and she's 8 pounds and something, and she's looking great. And mom is doing well. She's up doing her thing, chasing Amara, who is, I think, 18 months, and then Adeline, a newborn. So she's got her hands full, and I helped her as much as I could yesterday in the midst of all the tomatoes and things. So we're just rocking on with the 2-patient crew. Anyway, let's get to coring and chopping. In my sink over here, I have some Roma tomatoes that I picked at the farm, and I've got them soaking in some vinegar water. They've been washed, but I've just laid them back in there just to make sure we're killing germs. And all I do is take a good sharp knife, core it out. And since these are not like slicer tomatoes that have big blemishes on the end, I don't worry about cutting the ends off of these. I just like to core them, slice them in a few slices. Some people just quarter them. I just go at it. However, so you see I've got a few pieces here. I put them in my pot. That's it. So I'll fill the pot with all these tomatoes. This is 1 5-gallon bucket's worth. And then I'll put them on the stove on a medium heat. Let them cook down for a little while. I will strain as much juice as possible and put that in jars to can. And then I'll run the tomatoes, cooked tomatoes, through my Ninja to puree it, and then I strain it through a sieve again, or a cheesecloth, whichever I'm in the mood to do that day. Probably going to be the sieve today because I'm trying to do it in a hurry. And I save these cores and any seeds or puree mixture that's left and put it into my compost. And so nothing is wasted. I do not keep anything that has blemishes. I cut it out. So you see that. That's gone. Beautiful. Once again, just core it and slice it. And fill the pot up. Okay. So my pot is full. And I still have some tomatoes left. And as these cook down, I will be adding these to the pot and just stirring them in. Okay, so I don't know if you're like me and a total creature of habit or convenience or liking to kill two birds with one stone, which is what I like to do. When I get ready to can stuff, as my tomatoes are preparing and cooking down, I've been getting my jars ready. Now, they're washed and they're clean, but they've not been heated yet or sanitized to the fullest. So what I like to do with my water bath canner is I have my water in there and I'm gonna get it boiling, and I'm gonna put these jars in here and let them rock and roll for 5 or 10 minutes. Well, that gets my water going and it sanitizes the jars. They'll be hot, they'll be ready, and I'll fill them and then return them to the canner and let them go for their 40 minutes. Easy peasy, less mess. I am all about less mess. I have enough clutter in my life. I have enough junk. I don't like it. I'm happier, minimalistic. So, processing tomatoes, getting the jars ready, all in one shebang. Easy. Now, one thing I didn't say, as I'm filling the canner with the jars, I go ahead and I put water in the jars. There's water in the canner too, but that'll also show me how deep it is, so that when these are full of tomatoes, then I'll be close enough to what I need. I may need to add a little bit of water because of evaporation or whatever, but I won't have to carry this heavy pot. I'll just put a pitcher of water over here and have it ready to add as needed. But this will let it all boil and get them ready. I've set the jars down in the water, but you can see the water is about an inch over the top of the jars, and that's because I've done this enough that I've learned. So what I'm going to do is let this get to a rock and roll boil. I'm going to stir these tomatoes, let them finish cooking down, and get me a little pot ready to put my lids and rings in, and I'll get them hot. I don't boil them, but I do get them hot or really warm so that nothing is cold on the jars, and that way we get a good seal. And this is all I'm doing with the tomatoes, is just stirring them around. That's a lot in there in that one pot, but you can see the juices are already starting to come through. So I'll have some tomato juice to can too. And I use that for vegetable soups and things, and any other kind of soup that I want to. It just makes it so easy to have ingredients canned separately. Now, I do like to can the vegetable soup as a soup, but I really like having separate carrots, separate green beans, you know, all those things done separately, and then you can make any meal you want to, or you can have them just as a side dish. It just makes life so much easier. Something you need to know is I can my own way. Do not follow my methods precisely. Do your own research and check the Ball canning book. Follow those instructions or the USDA. Never put yourself in danger of botulism or any other kind of germ. Do your own research. I do things my way. This is Mimsy's way or Anna's way. Be sure you follow the Ball steps. Otherwise, you're asking for trouble and you're putting yourself and your family in danger. Just for the sake of showing you, this is my little saucepan, and in it is my Ball lids. And I'll add my rings. And I'll heat those. This is the wide mouth lids because my jars are wide mouth, and I have some regular mouth, but these for today are the wide mouth. And this is my favorite Ball canning book, the complete book of home preserving. Now, it has a lot of recipes in there. I don't use those, but I do use the processing times. And you see I've got my tabs for things that I use to can common. I mean, those are common things that I can. There's other things in there, but I don't mark it unless it's just something that I like to do all the time. And I always double check myself. I don't guess. I always, always, always follow the recommended times. Something you need to know about canning tomatoes is you must have an acidifier. So you can either use lemon juice, concentrate, or real lemon juice, or citric acid. Now I have both. I typically use the lemon juice. I get it at Sam's. I just like it. You don't taste it, but it takes care of the tomatoes and makes processing them safe. That's one reason you get to water bath tomatoes, unless you add ingredients. If you're adding onions, jalapenos, bell peppers, or anything, you're changing the recipe in any way, then you're gonna need to pressure can. Water bath canning is for plain tomatoes or plain sauces, jams, and jellies. Other than that, when you add other things in, or you change a recipe, or you're using your homemade recipes, you've got to pressure can. You can see the tomatoes are cooking down nicely, and I could add the rest to this pot, but I've decided not to because it's easier to stir when it's like this. I'm just gonna let it continue to cook down. I've got it on a medium low, but I'm gonna crank it up just a tad and let it get to really boiling and simmering. Now that it's got plenty of juice and I don't have to worry about it scorching, I'm gonna crank her on up. I didn't tell you earlier, but I did leave the skins on these Roma tomatoes, and as they're cooking down, you'll see them peel off some. It's okay, leave them. It's nutrients. When I make a puree, when I put it in my Ninja and I grind it up, you can't tell that skin's in there, and it's good for you. So that's something you might want to consider. This is the easy way. Now, when I get ready to do the mass amounts, I will be flashing and getting the skins off and things like that. But for this method, I leave the skins on. When I get ready to do my jars, before I put my tomatoes in, I add since they're quart jars, I add a teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt. Please use pink Himalayan salt or a good sea salt without iodine in it, because even if it had iodine, by the time it sits on a shelf at Walmart or wherever, so I'm getting some good steam rocking, the iodine's not any good anyway. So I add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, salt to each jar. So I'll show you that later on. These are almost done. So what I'm going to do is strain them, and then I'll show you how I get them ready for the Ninja. This is my trusty pasta thing, and I just grab them out, let them drip off a little bit, because I'm wanting to save my juice. I could get another big pot. I could use a colander and all that jazz, but since I'm not in this huge rush right at this moment, I'll just pick them up this way a little at a time, and that way I'm saving my juice. And I'll still have to pour off juice from this. I mean, it's just how it is. But I'm taking peeled tomato seeds, all of it, and putting it in the Ninja. And I bought one of those nifty little juicer gadgets, Cuisinart, but I haven't looked at it well enough yet to use that today, and I'm just trying to get this done, because tomorrow will be a lot more tomatoes to deal with. This was just 1 bucket, and I'd like to have 10. But you can see I'm just gathering it up and putting it in. I was gonna get my little lid here, get that fitted on there, and let me grab my top. I thought I had it out. Okay. that set on there and get that plugged in. Pulse it real quick. That's it. If it's real liquidy, I strain off a little extra liquid. You can see there's a good bit of liquid coming to the surface from where it's been pulsed. I have a sieve and I hold it right back over my pot because I don't want to lose that liquid. That's tomato juice. And I just pour some of it out and then put it right back in the Ninja. So I'm keeping my pots minimalistic and my mess down. I'm just gonna let that juice strain back into there. Put this back in here. When it comes time to fill the jars, that's what I'll do. And I have a nice puree that is good for making spaghetti sauces, adding to chili. You can even make salsa with it. You know, add you some tomato chunks that's not been cooked down like that, that's been diced or whatever. I do it all kinds of ways. I do not waste anything at all. I like to keep that juice. And like I said, even the cores or little bad pieces that I may come across that I cut off, I put it in the compost. Nothing's wasted. As you can see, I've added it back. And there may be still some juice. You're not going to get it every bit. It's tomatoes. But that's okay because when you're cooking a soup or a chili, you'll need the liquid anyway, right? So, enjoy. You don't have to strain off as much juice as I did. I just like to because when you don't, your jars, once they're processed, you got this much puree in the top and this much juice in the bottom, and it just looks kind of weird. Or you can shake it up once the 12 hours has passed and you know that it's sealed, but still, I just like it to be full of puree more than liquid. Just a little FYI. For the sake of simplicity, I'd tell you just to go ahead and have your supplies that you need ready. Your measuring, your debubbler, your magnets, your funnel, your lifters, your lemon juice, salt, your warm lids and rings. And that way when you bring your jars over, you'll be ready. I like to put parchment paper down on my towel for the sake of saving my towel. I don't relish the idea of tomato stains on my good towels. So that's just me. Have your supplies ready. That will help. Now I've brought over a couple of really hot jars out of the water bath canner. And for the sake of just making it quick, I'm just going to show you how I do it. I just get my lemon juice, whoop, and I make a mess. That should be on bloopers. Okay, there's one. And two. And then I get my little bit of salt. You do not have to add salt. I do. Now this is just the little half teaspoon. So I'm going to make it almost a teaspoon because that's just how I like it. You do not have to do that. And then it's ready for the tomato puree to go in. So I've got my little handy spoon here to help get it in there. So you be sure you leave your head space that's recommended, which is about 1 inch. Take your debubbler and work that around in there real good. Now, something you need to know that I didn't mention before was I always use a little bit of a paper towel folded up. I have some vinegar, and I just added a spray nozzle to it, and I make sure that it's damped with vinegar. Pull this off. See, the parchment paper is great to have because I'm not ruining my towels. And I wipe my rim super good after debubbling. Okay, get your magnet and a lid. Put it on your jar as centered as possible. Half turn backwards and then finger tight. Do not crank it on there. Don't just rip, rip, rip. Just get it finger tight. That is sufficient. And return it back to the pot of water. So again, I use 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and your salt. If you desire it, you do not have to put it in there. You can season later. I just know how I like it, and so that's what I do. Okay? And now I'm not going to have enough tomatoes in here to fill this jar, but my pot is over here to my left, and I will refill the Ninja and do again. And I'll do this until all of the jars or the pot is empty, and I've got the other pot on the stove going with the rest of the tomatoes that I had left over. So I've processed a little bit more, and we're going to finish filling this jar. And there is some liquid in here, and that's okay. I'll use these for chili anyway, or soups, like I said before. So leaving that headspace, after debubbling, I may have to take a little bit of this out. Now when I cook, these little bits of seeds, they don't affect us. They don't bother us bad at all. If you need to go through the whole process of de-seeding, you can. And you see, this is right at an inch headspace. That's what these little gadgets are for. Little indentations. Everything's been debubbled, and I'm going to double check myself really good here. And then your cloth with the vinegar. Some people just use water. I just feel better about it using the vinegar. Grab a lid. Place it on your jar. Put your lid on there and have to turn backwards and let it catch, and then finger tight. That's it. Get your little grabbers because the jar is hot, and take it back over to the water bath canner. You can also do it this way too, like just put your tomatoes in the sieve to start with before putting it in your blender or whatever, but you're still going to have liquids to deal with, but it's up to you how you do it. Whatever's easiest for you, whatever's convenient, do it your way. Find your niche. Find your way of doing it, what you're comfortable with. I just like simple. I'm all about simple, finding the easiest way to do something. You know, work smarter, not harder. That's my philosophy on most things. Another little tip is if you have these full of water when they're in that pot and they're boiling, and then you take them out and you realize that you have too much water in there, just pull this jar out with the water in it and dump it out, or set it aside for sterile water, you know, like for baby bottles or whatever. I mean, you don't have to waste it. Also, if your canner is not full and you want something extra in there but you don't really have anything, put you some filtered water in one of these and can it with it. That sterilizes filtered water, and it's great for wound care and even formula. I mean, there's all kinds of uses for sterile water, right? So be crafty, think about it, don't waste your space, use what you have. So I took what was left in this big pot, which was liquid with some remnant in it and the seeds, and I poured it through the sieve into the other pot, because once I had finished boiling in that pot, the rest of the tomatoes, I had poured them through the sieve over into that pot. I'm just going back and forth, back and forth. And what that is doing is giving me a clear tomato juice, and I will can it in the next go round, because my canner's going to be full with 7 quarts of tomatoes. And you see, you're just going back and forth, and this little bit of remnant will go into the Ninja to finish the last batch of process, to go into the last jars. And then it goes into, everything's in the canner, and voila, you're done. It's that easy. Now I've got my jars in here, and you can see the water is a little too full, so I'm just taking the pot that I had the lids in and scooping some out. And then I'm gonna take it right over here to this dirty pot and pour it in there. And that's gonna help break loose a little bit of that remnant, make for easier cleaning. And then right back, I'll check some more. Just a little bit at a time. I don't want to take too much out. But as you can see, we've got a little more than an inch head space. I'm gonna crank this back up, get it boiling again, put that lid on it. Once it gets in a full rolling boil, then I'll set my timer for the 40 minutes. Then once it's done and I turn it off, I'll let it sit for 5 minutes, and then I'll set my jars out to cool for 12 hours. And in case you're wondering, this is my strained tomato juice that I'll can in my next session. You won't be watching me do that. It's just putting the liquid in the jar with the lemon juice with the citric acid and a little salt and running it back through the water canner 40 minutes, just like the tomatoes. So never a fun thing, but cleanup. It's super easy because I had the parchment paper down, and you see where I made messes, it didn't ruin my towels. And anywhere that I may have splattered a little bit, like right there, I just hit it with my vinegar spray bottle that I made out of the vinegar bottle. It's just vinegar, and I just hit those little spots with that, and it'll come right out. Just a handy dandy little tip. And another tip. Oh, I can't believe I forgot to tell y'all this. Did you know that instead of using a pot like I used, when you really crush for time and you want to get something done ahead, you can put your cut up tomatoes in a crock pot. You can crank it up on high and keep it stirred. Once it gets going real good, turn it down on low. If you need to leave it overnight, you can, or if you just want to do it for a few hours, you can. So that's something else to keep in mind. You can use a crock pot. Okay, y'all. There's what your tomatoes are going to look like as a puree in the jar. Hope this helped y'all. Hope you enjoyed my tutorial. Don't do it Anna's way. So I want you to get you a ball book. It doesn't have to be this one. It can be the blue book or whatever you find, or you can just Google online, but get under the ball site or the USDA and make sure you do things safely. Happy canning.